but I can't help falling in love with you.
Vernon Presley was born on April 10, 1916, in Fulton, Mississippi. He met and married Elvis's mother Gladys Smith when he was just 17. In 1934, Vernon Presley borrowed $180 for materials to build a small frame house in East Tupelo. Gladys soon became pregnant and she gave birth on January 8, 1935. However, tragedy occurred during the birth. Gladys had twins, but the first boy, Jesse Garon Presley, was stillborn. While Gladys was home caring for baby Elvis, Vernon worked odd jobs to make ends meet, but the family struggled. The unemployment rate in the United States in 1935 was 20.1%. Financially, times were hard on Vernon and Gladys. In 1938, Vernon was convicted of altering a check and served 8 months in prison. The Presleys' financial difficulties guided Elvis toward music. When he wanted a bicycle the family could not afford, Gladys encouraged him to accept a guitar instead. With Elvis's promise as a musician and the hopes of better opportunities in a bigger city, the family moved to Memphis, Tennessee, in 1948, with so few belongings that they all fit into their 1939 Dodge. After graduating from high school, Elvis took odd jobs working as a movie theater usher and a truck driver for Crown Electric Company. Until then, Elvis was listening mostly to pop and country music and the black R&B as well as the gospel music. He began singing locally as the Hillbilly Cat. He sent samples of his songs to several companies. Producer Sam Phillips, a local blues label, responded to his audition tape with a phone call. In fact, he discovered Elvis to the world, and several weeks of recording sessions ensued with a band consisting of Presley, guitarist Scotty Moore, and bassist Bill Black. Elvis's songs quickly and more than expected were welcomed by the public and he became a music superstar. Neither Elvis nor Sam Phillips even thought that the songs would become so successful and popular. In a short period of time, he turned from a local singer to an iconic celebrity. His popularity soared in 1956 when his song, Heartbreak Hotel, became the singer's first #1 hit. Elvis gained national attention when 60 million people tuned in to watch him perform on The Ed Sullivan Show 1956. Acknowledgement of service obligation signed by Elvis Presley on March 24, 1958. Elvis's induction into the Army also marked a key moment in the Cold War, which was a contest of culture as much as arms. And unlike prior celebrities, Elvis wasn't dispatched to special services to entertain troops. Rather, he was put in the 3rd Armored Division in Friedberg, Germany. American singer and actor Elvis Presley served in the United States Army from 1958 to 1960 after being drafted to serve in the military as an active-duty soldier for 2 years. Elvis Presley's service in the U.S. Army helped his popularity skyrocket. When Elvis Presley was drafted into the U.S. Army just before Christmas of 1957, it was a massive moment in the music industry. By this time, he was already an international celebrity and his career was about to reach new heights. Many of those invested in Presley's success feared that induction into the military could kill his career before it had truly taken off. Presley arrived at Fort Hood, Texas on March 24, 1958, and was assigned to the 2nd Armored Division's Hell on Wheels. His arrival was a major press event, and many fans showed up to witness it. He completed basic training and traveled to Europe on board the USS General George M. Randall AP-115. Upon his arrival, he was sent to Friedberg, Germany to serve with the 3rd Armored Division. The Soviets were so astonished to see Elvis in uniform they thought it was a trick. East German Defense Minister Willy Stoph called Elvis a means of seduction, intended to lure defectors over the border. To counter the threat, the Communists created a rival dance in 1959, the Lipsy, which was something like a speedy waltz combined with a rumba in 6/4 time. The point was to nip any Elvis-like gyrating in the bud by forcing dancers into male-led couples and away from solo dance floor antics. The lipsy was worse than a flop. It was openly mocked, and the communist government's fixation with Elvis only heightened rock and roll's allure to East German youths. In Leipzig and 13 other East German cities, authorities jailed teenagers for shouting, "Long live Elvis Presley," as they danced in the streets. Elvis created plenty of headaches for the army, from the famous haircut in 1958 to his return from Germany in 1960. Every move Private Presley made had to be coordinated at the highest level so the army could enforce crowd control over swarming fans, reporters, and photographers. Elvis was bigger than any of his commanders or general staff officers assigned to handle him. Guards kept watch 24/7 for girls trying to scale the fence and catch a glimpse of the famous singer. At the Army Post Office, clerks battled a 15-fold increase in letters to the battalion from fans around the world. But for the most part, the Army shielded Elvis from the public eye. For 18 months, Elvis was out of sight. No performances, no recordings, no TV, and hardly any interviews. He'd fallen off the media radar. On March 5, 1960, Presley was honorably discharged from active duty. He'd met a special girl in Germany, the 14-year-old stepdaughter of Air Force Captain Paul Beaulieu and biological daughter of James E. Wagner, a Carnegie, Pennsylvania, native and Navy pilot, killed in a plane crash during World War II. Elvis and Priscilla would stay in touch and eventually marry in 1967. Elvis starred in 31 feature films and 2 theatrically released concert documentaries. However, most of those movies were more commercial than artistic. While many of the movies Elvis starred in featured his songs, the King actually had nothing to do with the film that includes the most of his songs. Elvis always wanted to be able to act in a movie that would have the opportunity to show his acting abilities. He believed that he has not yet acted in a movie that is ideal and standard in his opinion. Nevertheless, fans welcomed his films. Elvis Presley wasted no time winning over fans right from the beginning, thanks to his voice, energetic stage show, style, revolutionary sound, and charm. But the music business is just that, a business, and every artist needs a manager to help take care of the details. From mapping out a tour route to arguing for higher appearance fees, the manager takes care of the business side of things so the artist can focus on the music. The agreement between Presley and his ruthless manager, signed at Sun Records studio in Memphis, Tennessee, came just before the singer rocketed to international superstardom. On February 6, 1955, Elvis met the man who would become his third and final manager, Colonel Tom Parker. Parker was born in the Netherlands as Andreas Cornelis van Keechk. He was the 7th child of a delivery driver and housewife. He was an illegal immigrant when he arrived in the U.S. in 1929 at the age of 20. When Parker arrived in the U.S., he created a new identity for himself and worked as a carnival employee before becoming involved in music promotion. It was reported that despite his official title, he was never actually a colonel, and when he enlisted in the U.S. Army, he was discharged after a psychiatrist certified him a psychopath. Parker was officially a master of manipulating people. In the 1970s, Parker tricked Presley into signing a 5-year Las Vegas casino residency contract, even though Presley vociferously expressed his desire to perform internationally. Court records showed that Colonel Parker eventually took 50% of everything Elvis made. He even went so far as to negotiate power of attorney so that Elvis had no control over his own estate. In 1965, Colonel Tom Parker made $300,000 more than Elvis did. In 1973, when RCA bought out Elvis's royalties on his back catalog, the Colonel ended up making more money from the deal than Elvis. The Colonel is known to have pocketed $6 million from the deal, $1.5 million more than Elvis, his client. Although Elvis is known for his trademark dark pompadour, he actually was a natural blonde. Presley was a big fan of Tony Curtis, an actor who dyed his hair black, so he decided to use shoe polish to achieve a similar look. Later in his career, Elvis switched to real hair dye and also began dyeing his eyebrows and eyelashes. At the height of Elvis's fame, over 60,000 children a year were diagnosed with polio. When the polio vaccine was developed in 1965, many were skeptical to get it, with vaccination rates among teenagers at only 0.6%. In order to persuade people to get vaccinated, Elvis agreed to get his vaccine on live television during the Ed Sullivan Show. After getting his shot, teenage vaccination rates went up to 80% in just 6 months. An interesting side history of the king is his discipline in the martial arts. Presley held black belts in karate and taekwondo. Presley's interest in the martial arts began when he was an army private stationed in Germany after he was drafted. In 1958, Elvis began studying karate in the army. He studied Shotokan while in Europe and Kenpo when he returned to the United States. As Elvis continued his training, he met Master Kang Rhee, who bestowed the singer with a 7th-degree black belt. Occasionally, during movie fight scenes, he would use karate. Elvis trained with Rhee from 1970 to 1974 in Memphis. He was awarded the 8th-degree black belt by Rhee in 1974. Throughout his entire career, Elvis only performed in North America and only performed outside of the United States 3 times, all for shows in Canada. This was apparently at the behest of Elvis's manager. Since Parker was an illegal immigrant, he was afraid that leaving America would be a problem for him. He worried that if he left the United States for a show overseas, he wouldn't be allowed back in. Later in his career, Elvis usually wore rhinestone-studded jumpsuits while performing. The jumpsuits initially weighed in at around 25 to 30 pounds, but as the beating became more intricate, they could weigh up to 75 pounds. His American Eagle jumpsuit, also known as the Aloha, after wearing it for a concert special filmed in Hawaii, was his most expensive, costing $65,000 to make at the time. Today, it would likely cost 4 times as much. In 1964, Elvis bought President Franklin Delano Roosevelt's presidential yacht. He paid $55,000 for the boat, which was often called the Floating White House. Soon after purchasing the boat, Elvis gave it to St. Jude's Children's Hospital, which is headquartered in Memphis, so they could sell it to raise funds for the hospital. Presley was known for his love of peanut butter, banana, and bacon sandwiches, but sometimes his southern palate demanded other delicacies. Graceland contained an extensive list of goods that the king required on hand at all times every day. After reading that President Lyndon B. Johnson had 3 television sets to allow him to watch all 3 major network news programs at once, Presley borrowed the idea for his downstairs media room. Elvis turned the Jungle Room into a recording studio. In the mid-60s, Presley added an enclosed den off the home's kitchen, which he would later fill with tiki furniture and plants. In February 1976, RCA dispatched a mobile recording unit to Graceland and transformed the large room into a temporary recording studio. Presley recorded his final songs in the infamous Jungle Room, a den decked out in jungle-themed decor, where he supposedly spent most of his time because it reminded him of Hawaii. Hollywood Walk of Fame Elvis received his star at 6777 Hollywood Boulevard in the category of recording on February 8, 1960. The star was later moved to its current location next to the Beatles' star under the infamous Hollywood Goddess gazebo at Hollywood and La Brea. Graceland is the second most visited home in America. Guests are still flocking to Graceland. The estate welcomes an average of more than 650,000 visitors a year, making it second only to the White House as the most visited home in the United States. Elvis Presley's fame stems from his pioneering fusion of musical genres, charismatic stage presence, and ability to connect with audiences. His exceptional vocal, instrumental, and performance talents saw him become a global icon. His ability to transcend social divides also left a lasting impact on popular culture.